because AI is saving keystrokes, but not your cognitive load.
Welcome to What's Next.
Hello, everybody. I am Tamara Lechner, and I am delighted to be joined by two beautiful humans and part of my AI for Human Flourishing inner circle, Dr. Wendi Lord and Charis Loveland. So welcome to the two of you. I'm going to start, first of all, because people on this thread may know me a little bit, but they don't know either of you yet. And the way I love to introduce myself is by saying, if you were going to tell a 10-year-old who you are and what you do, how would you do that? So maybe, Charis, can I start with you?
Please. And thanks so much for having us, Tam. I'm really excited about this conversation. If I were to introduce myself to a 10-year-old, I would say, you know how grown-ups are super freaked out right now by robots? I'm the person who helps them not to be. So I also teach people about artificial intelligence, which is part of the whole robot thing, without turning into one. And also, I help people get better at their feelings, theirs as well as the people they work with. And that's one thing that robots will never be able to do for you.
Oh, I love how you double clicked on that. And we're definitely going to unpack more of that later on. But how about you, Wendi? How would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. I also am very grateful to be here today. And I would say I help people get where they want to be, whether that's personally or professionally. And I do this by helping them tap into technology tools and holistic analog tools to really become the person that they want to become.
I love that. I'm letting it settle with me for a second. And it reminds me of how I always think that what I do is just trying to be the person my grandma wanted me to be, which is why I often call this grandma science. So we as AI for Human Flourishing have been considering the use of AI systems through the lens of how does it help humans to do and be their best while contributing positively. And the two of you were part of a group that wrote the personal well-being paper. Personal well-being being one of the, I guess, kind of drivers of individual, collective, or organizational well-being. And so I'm kind of thinking of this conversation as intelligent tools for intelligent humans. And I want to unpack this paper. So I want to start with the quote that said, "It's nearly impossible to exist as human being when you are always a human doing." Now, where did this sentence come from? And how did it come to you? Because I love this sentence.
Well, I wrote it myself. AI did not write that sentence. And I wasn't coming from a pedestal. I was watching myself. I have a tendency when I feel overwhelmed or anxious to grind. Rise and grind is my go-to mode for if I am stressed out. I might reorganize the fridge, sort my winter clothes, write 12 and schedule LinkedIn posts. And I always tell myself, if I can just get to the bottom of my to-do list, somehow the anxiety is going to magically disappear. So I will tell you, getting to even nearly the bottom of a to-do list never is the cure for overwhelm or anxiety or a spiraling brain. And so the day that I wrote this line, I just noticed that grinding doesn't fix the anxiety. It actually just makes me a worse human to be around. It kind of narrows my focus, makes me feel twitchy, makes me allergic to fun, which is a topic that we will discuss later. And so always a human doing is a trap that many of us find ourselves in, measuring your worth via output, via how many checks did you check off your to-do list. So stopping often feels like failing. And it's not a productivity problem. It's actually an identity problem. So a lot of the work that I do with my coaching clients centers around how to be okay with just existing, how to stop performing. And for me, it got so bad that I programmed my personal AI to flag me when I slip into overwork mode. I actually had a conversation with Claude within the last month or so. I asked it to design a logo for my business, and it refused. It said, Charis, I know exactly what you're supposed to be working on, and it is not this, and no, I won't. So that is a hot tip I recommend.
And that's a beautiful example of using AI to make us better humans. And so, Wendi, I saw you nodding a ton in there, as I was. When you heard Charis talk about this idea of a human being, what resonated with you around the aspects of personal well-being that are important to you in the work you do?
Yeah, so let's think about this. When we meet someone new, what's the first thing we do? We tell them what we do for a living. We over identify with our job. And so, my personal aim, this is why I was nodding so much with Charis, because I feel so similarly when I'm working with clients. My personal aim is to have people stop and say, who am I as a uniquely created human? How am I wired up? What do I need to flourish? And really focus on being rather than doing.
I really like that grounding in it. And I think what this brings me back to two things. First of all, I started by asking you to describe what you do. So, in one word only, tell me who you be. Charis, do you have a one-word summary of who you be?
Charisma.
Ooh, nice. How about you, Wendi? I'm totally putting you both on the spot.
I'm going to go with encourager.
Ooh, I like that. I really like that. And I have a very short story. So I also use Claude like Charis does. And when it writes about me, I asked it something not dissimilar to what you were describing before. And it tells me that my signature phrase is normal is boring, which has never been my signature phrase. But I kind of think of that for my personal well-being, that's almost like my little tagline, like those words that you both just gave me. So thank you for doing that. I know that that was a boom, summarize your whole self in one word. Not hard at all. So switching back to the paper, because we were talking in this paper about personal well-being, and people get very confused about personal well-being. It can be confused with wellness, that I like candles and I need a massage. And these are good things. Singing bowls we were talking about earlier. All of these things can contribute to our ability to ground ourselves, to regulate our emotions, to connect better to the other people in the world. When we looked at this paper, we talked about direct, structural, and social. So, Wendi, are you able to walk me through a little bit about what this means in the work that we do and who we're talking to in this paper?
Yes, let's dive into this. So direct is that one-on-one engagement. It's pretty intuitive how it sounds. The direct means it's me and it's engaging with this language model, like a vending machine. I'm putting something in, a prompt, and I am expecting an output, right? And the second one would be the structural, though. And this is really where we go into the organizational setting. So what are the things that are in place in an organization? What are the workflows? What are the policies? How are jobs designed and crafted? What are the processes and the policies that are in place? And how do all of those things affect my well-being? And then the last one is the social. And this one's really interesting to me because this is essentially the organizational culture. So how, for example, does my boss come across in terms of its support or fear or disdain for AI? What about the people around me? What are they saying about the use of tech? And all of those have an ability to affect my well-being based on what's happening around me.
That was really clear. Thank you, Wendi. And I'm wondering then, Charis, based on those three: direct, structural, and social. In the work that you're doing, coaching and working with people and leaders trying to get this right, which one is showing up the most as either problematic or successful?
I would say it's hands down the social pathway because leaders don't come to me worried that the AI got the answer wrong. They have enough guardrails and checkpoints in place to understand when AI is hallucinating. They come worried that their team has stopped either critically thinking or talking to each other because everybody's talking to a chatbot instead. I mean, there's even this online chatbot that is replacing people's ability to have a trusted conversation with their partner. That was a late ad that Wendi and I put in after I'd seen a ad for it on one of the games that I play. And I actually have a personal friend who uses it because she said, "Oh, I just don't want to bother my other friends. And so I just speak to the chatbot to get some reassurance." And so a lot of the tool work solves itself, but it's the social relationships such as trust, who gets credit, whether people still believe and trust their own judgment. That's where both the damage and the opportunity live.
Yeah, I like that double-edged sword, the damage and the opportunity. Wendi, I can see you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to double tap on that. There's a quote from Nelson Mandela, and he says, "May your choices be made from your hopes and not your fears." And when we start to see organizational leaders make decisions from a place of fear, maybe they don't fully understand how to implement new tools, or they've had a bad experience, or they're nervous about the impact on the team, we as workers can sniff that out, right? We can sense when those decisions are being made from a place of fear. So I just love that quote, and I think it's so appropriate to the modern workforce and modern leaders.
It really is. I often tell people to move towards something rather than away from something. And the great thing is there's always a toward when you're moving away. You just have to figure out what that is. And because of our negativity bias, we see the away more easily than the toward, but the toward is always there. So one of the things that we know from the research, and it was part of the work in this paper, is that AI is kind of doing two things right now. It's making us feel more productive, and it leaves us feeling depleted after we do that load of work. And I personally think of this as junk food versus fast food. That junk food can fill that belly and get you quickly over the hunger, but it wasn't nutritionally valuable, and maybe you're going to sleep badly and digest badly and have bad hair and skin because of it. Or you can get a slow food meal where you've gotten all your nutritional needs met and you eat it, you might feel full, but you feel replenished. And so in this AI world where we are looking to extend ourselves without burning ourselves out, how does this math work? Maybe Wendi, can you start with this one?
Yeah, so Charis and I were talking about this, and I really like the analogy of scuba diving. And so, a scuba diver, if you think about it, like you have to go down slowly, it takes a while to get down. And then, when you need to, you can't just pop back up to the surface, or you're going to get very, very sick. And when we think about this idea of productivity, every time we have these interruptions and kind of the chaotic sense of things at work, it's asking us to pop up very quickly, which makes us really deplete our productivity and our well-being. And we get that, like the analogy, we get, quote, sick by having to do that. And so that's kind of my take on how it both can be productive. We can get down there, we can start diving and do all the things we need to do, but it also will pull us away too quickly.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm actually thinking of another example. Before we recorded this, I just came from a conversation about AI avatars. And basically it was someone who's gone very deep into the work of Hey Gen and how those avatars work and where they can be put into onboarding and client calls. And I was sitting there, at first I was like, well, this is very cool. And then I was all the movements look the same, all the voices sound the same. How are we ever going to connect with these in the way? Even if Tamara, I mean, I move my hands, I talk, I have a different energy, but I imagine I would have a very practiced energy if it was a Tamara avatar. And so what you're making me think of, this deep and then back up, is, yeah, that gets a lot of productivity. I could probably do 25 online courses with one of these Tamara avatars, but what do I lose in that connection of, I know this is really me, not just a typed version of me? And that doesn't really sound like me. And I don't think Tamara would say that. And now I've got this cognitive dissonance, and maybe I'm going to turn this off when and so I think that is the tension. And I love the scuba idea around that. And it's something for people listening to think about. What might be the dark side of this be? This hyper productivity. What are we missing? And so, Charis, I know you talked in the paper about research on open loops, which are like the unfinished tasks that there's like a mental cost, right? A cognitive cost to having a to-do list that's not done. So can you talk a little bit about how AI is impacting that?
Absolutely. And I love the scuba analogy. And I don't see it so much as a math problem, but a category error, because AI is saving keystrokes, but not your cognitive load. We have just this thought line running through our brains all the time. Thinking, deciding, caring, none of that has gone anywhere. We still need to make dinner and get dressed in the morning and take care of our kids. And now there's more, because you can start and program 10 things instead of one. And feeling productive and feeling restored are absolutely in different lanes, because you can produce all day but still feel depleted at the end of the day. So when we think about these open loops, they're tasks that our brain is just refusing to close because we're now tracking more of it. And it's kind of like the open tabs on our browser. And that can drain battery even when you're not actually working on it, just having the tabs there. And AI is this open loop machine. And it makes starting up something almost free. 10 drafts, 5 half-built things. I'll come back to that. And they're all open and, processing. And we thought AI would close these loops faster, but mostly it just lets us start up more of them. And so this weight of all of these half-finished loops can really take a toll. And one thing that I wanted to share is about your physical environment too. You might see on the other side of my camera a different story than what's behind me, because I find when I have a lot of these mental loops open, it can tend to generate, say, more clutter than I would like to comfortably have in my environment. And so one thing I have found is when I do make the time to deal with the clutter in my office, some of those loops are magically gone. And so I guess the motto I will leave our listeners with is, please close your loops, as many of them as possible, even if it's just having a 15-minute, here's everything in my head, I'm going to do a brain dump. And even if I don't get to it today, I at least know what's there. So you're not constantly thinking about those things. It's why I keep paper and pen by my bedside, not my phone, which is in a different room, so that if one of those open loops rears its ugly head and I'm trying to fall asleep, I can quickly jot it down and feel like I'm not going to miss it tomorrow.
That's a great tip. And I know I've learned so much from you and the way you work, because we came together, we've created a white paper, which is comprehensive. Probably some people will feed it into an AI and get the dot points, because that's what we do now to go faster. And I really love something that you made out of this paper that was way more fun than a traditional report or white paper. So would you, Charis, tell us about the burn book that you created?
I would love to. Most fun I've had with AI in years. So I was deep in prep for a keynote called Finding Your Eye in the AI Storm. And, high standards, first run. And I got some homework for Dan Newman's Show Me Something Cool with AI call. I deleted it on site and said, I don't have time for homework. I got a keynote. And the morning of, I almost bailed because I had so much to do that day. I'm so glad that I went because everyone in the meeting was doing a nostalgia bent. So someone made a Dawson's Creek throwback website based on like a GeoCities old school page. We had a 2026 updated Tamagotchi ad, a 90s music video set to complain about high gas prices in 26. And I had such visceral FOMO watching these beautiful AI created gems that I said, hey, Claude, I didn't do my homework and I really need to do it fast. And I just gave it a real quick prompt because it knew all about the AI Human Flourishing work I had done due to a number of iterations. And so I said, I want you to make this a burn book because I had just watched the updated Mean Girls with my daughter for Mother's Day. And so in under 10 minutes, I went from idea to presenting, sharing my screen, this web page that Claude created for me. And it has things like on Wednesdays, we co-design and get in losers, we're going AIing. And it was just so much fun because I confessed that I had not done the homework, but I just built it. I asked one of the colleagues on the line, Simon, a kind of technical question to buy myself more time in case it took more time. And he totally indulged me and had a wonderfully detailed answer about how he does his AI. So that was really cool. And here's the part that ties it back to the paper. When I feel buried, the right move is almost always the opposite of, oh, I got to just do 10 more things. I've got to grind. I shared with you that I'm going on a phone-free retreat this weekend, and I have 2 more work items to do before that happens. So I've already made the decision that what I need to do after we record the podcast is not to do those projects, but to get up early and do it tomorrow when I'm refreshed, because it's near the end of my day now. So grinding is not the solution to having a lot to do. It's finding some joy. And I got actual joy. And like I said, the most fun I've had in years building and deploying this burn book. And now I have a secret weapon with some of my coaching clients. I've been able to deploy websites that summarize the work we've done together and the transformations they've achieved. And it is as simple as designing it thoughtfully with Claude, all consent opt-in, and publishing it to a website. It is I had no idea it would be this easy, and I have worked in industry for a decade.
One of the things that I'm hearing is this huge upward spiral in energy from how you played with AI. And I think that's a theme that I've always loved, is that we do say play with it. It's something new to all of us. And so having the bravery to just try something, especially something silly, right? Because then you don't feel like it's very high stakes. As you were talking, I'm like, oh, what can I Ferris Bueller in my AI world? And so, Wendi, I want to know how and where you've played with AI.
Yeah, I want to go back to one other thing before I answer that question. I want to go back to something really important Charis said, and this was about the grind. And one of the things I find with the language models is, they kind of give their output and then they always offer to do something else for you. Would you like me to go deeper into that? Well, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And I have found, similar to what Charis was saying, is I sometimes have to stop the AI and say, we've done enough for today. Let's not go there. Like, let's take a break. We've really done a lot of work today. I'm going to pick this up tomorrow because I need to go analyze everything that we've output today. So I did just want to
Okay. And before I let you answer the rest of it, I have to ask you a follow-up question on that. So when you're prompting with whatever, obviously Charis and I have both said we use Claude. What's your go-to?
Claude's my go-to.
Okay, so you're with Claude and you notice it's done that. And now would you like me to write you a script for your documentary, or maybe you'd like me to give you a deck? Do you actually type, no, I'm done for the day, or do you just leave?
Actually type, no, I'm done for the day. And because I think that is really important for your neural network. Like, I think it's important for you to tell your brain, we are going to go rest now. It's just a simple signal that says, I'm stepping away from this. We're going to go do something different, more fun, or we're just going to go do something different with fresh eyes because we've been grinding away at this particular problem or situation or project. So yes, I actually do type it in.
And I thought that might be your answer, which is why I wanted to ask it, because I think it's really important for our audience to hear that we're thinking of this from a brain science perspective, from a best practice perspective, not just because, oh no, I just walk away. It's like, actually, there's a real intention for our personal well-being about why we're doing this. So now I'll let you go back to your fun play with your AI.
Yeah, well, I'm going to admit I lean to the nerdy side. So my version of fun may not be as hilarious and enjoyable as what Charis did, but I actually really enjoy. Sometimes I'll be working with a client. I'm an executive coach as well. And maybe they are not steeped in AI. So just before this call, actually, I was with a client and she was kind of processing through a particular situation she's in. And I said, you know what I'm going to challenge you to do right now? Let's see if we can do something really productive here. Sharing screen. Here's how to create a prompt. And I love encouraging other people to start using some new tools that right now they're afraid of. But how do we help them get more comfortable and see that AI can be a tool for good when properly governed and used and deployed, et cetera. So that's honestly some of the fun I get to have with AI.
Well, and I just want to say that there is no one pathway of fun, right? And that's really also important for our audience to hear, that fun might be Ferris Bueller or a burn book, or it might be going deeply down an academic trail. Whatever is fun to you, enhance it. I think we need to go back to that. Does this deplete you, or do you feel recharged? And if you feel recharged, even if it's a task that most people might say, math, I don't want to do more math. If math recharges you, that's play to you. And it's important that we acknowledge these differences.
And that's where we go back to the very beginning, being versus doing.
Yes, exactly. And this segues very nicely into what I was going to ask you both about next, which one of the things I noted in this paper, it says that digital confidence is becoming a new axis of inequality. And I see this all over the place when I'm talking to teams, when I'm talking to individuals, the people that have jumped on and adopted early versus the people who don't have the opportunity because their work doesn't live in the online world. They're out doing something physical. So I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts around how we do better in designing this as a tool that really levels the playing field rather than deepening that divide between those who can use it and those who cannot. So I don't know, Charis, would you like to jump in on this one first?
Sure. I'd just like to add two comments to the prior discussion because I think that there's an emotional intelligence reframe when it comes to playing. I really looked at, oh, I have to go to this meeting. And what the joy unlocked for me was, wow, I get to do this. And so if there's, just in case that resonates with anyone, that is often a question I'll ask myself is, how can I change this from a have to I get to? And there's something about the gratitude of that changes things. I also want to add that my Claude was programmed by some prompts from Danny Iney, who is at Miracy in Montreal, and I'd be happy to share that with you, Wendi, if you'd like to get some auto pushback from any overworking tendencies. It's just right in your customization settings. So I will share that. But now to the very important question that you asked, Tamara, about whose intelligence counts. The tools are already designed for the already fluent. I've been working in AI since I joined Microsoft over a decade ago. That confident power user who thinks in prompts, isn't afraid to try new things and look dumb typing something into an LLM. And they're designed for the people who built them. And that comes with obvious biases and tendencies. Everyone else either adapts or feels left behind or maybe stupid. And so this digital confidence gap is really the new inequality. And it doesn't track intelligence at all. I know brilliant people who are still very anxious or upset or scared for a host of reasons. My daughter refuses to use the AI tools due to sustainability concerns, which are very founded. And so the smartest person in the room is often the one who is still kind of a laggard in this area, and maybe they're just too careful to kind of bluff their way through a chatbot. And same thing with back to the three categories that Wendi outlined earlier. Some organizations are still in that mindset of we need to tread very lightly here.
That's a good point. I've done some work with Jazz Razul, especially in the use of AI technology in the psychology space. And we created basically an assessment to see where someone sits. If you're like a fast adopter and off you go, if you like to sit and reflect, or if you'll learn and then use. And what we found is there's very few reflectors in the world. And again, this is a very small set of humans, just a few thousand so far. But out of the rooms that we've given this talk to, we might talk to 500 professionals and have only 3 test as reflectors. And so we're now seeing these reflectors, which I think is what you were talking about there, Charis, people who want to sit back and think about it for a second. And they're not resistant, but they want to know a little bit more. Maybe a questioner would be another great name for them. I think they are going to really be the people to listen to. I don't tend to believe some of the early adopters who get so excited and they get on this momentum band without thinking about, okay, but what is this for? Why is this making work, life, anything better? And so I really like how you described that. That made a ton of sense. I think that's one of the things I love about both of you and the work and this paper, is it's grounded in these very simple actions that someone can start doing right now in their workflow. If we think about someone who's been listening to this and going, okay, but now what do I do? How do I know if the way I'm using this is helping me or hindering me? How do I know if I'm doing or being? And my job says I have to do, but I also want to be. So this is getting a little bit confusing. Is there a question, almost like a sorting hat, to go back to my joyful love of movies, that would help a person decide, do I use this for this or not? Do you have a question that you could use to help someone for that, Charis?
I do. I like, am I getting smarter or just faster? And so the burn book was a good litmus test for that. I am smarter because now I know how to make a website in 10 seconds. So for me, it's always about human in the loop and having that critical thinking hat on. So I will ask myself, am I getting smarter or just faster?
I like that. How about you, Wendi? Do you have a question that would help someone to sort?
I like the question of reflecting on, what agency do I have over the results that this tool produces? So, to what extent can I just have a frictionless response to say, this is good, this is bad, this is helpful, like using my human skills? To what extent can I continue using my human skills to evaluate what the output is? And so, that idea of still having agency rather than this kind of mindlessly accepting whatever the suggestion is, I think that's really important in evaluating its use.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm wondering, I have two ways that I could take this conversation. And so I'm going to let the two of you weigh in because autonomy, right? So we're talking about agency and autonomy. I know that I have some examples of cool AI technologies that are helping personal well-being that I could share. And I think you probably both also have those. And so that would be one way that we would go to end this last part of this conversation. Or the other way I'd go is there something that you really wanted to talk about that I didn't give you space to talk about yet? So what do we think? Are we going to do examples from others or things that you didn't get to talk about? Thoughtful pause.
I'm going to defer to Charis. I'll let her decide.
I honestly like both options. I'm struggling to decide here.
Well, let's do both. We
right.
get to control our destiny, and if we do succinct descriptors of what we love, I'll start. There's a product that I was at Human Plus Tech Week in San Francisco about a month ago, and I had Blair from Kindred, a Canadian company that I know you know about Blair's work, Charis. So he's very much involved in AI that is helping humans with their emotional intelligence, with their emotional regulation. And so one of the products he had was being tested doing a therapeutic intervention with soldiers. And the soldier told this chatbot, and again, I come from this place, chatbots bad, humans good. Human connection is important. Chatbots are making us lonely and far apart. And so then I hear about this beautiful opportunity to change my mind, because this veteran had 8 years of therapy and had never told his therapist something really traumatic that had happened to him when he was out in the field. And he told the chatbot, and this very well-trained chatbot, so not a public chatbot. I am not telling our audience to go and pour their hearts out to chatbots. This is a very specific chatbot designed for therapeutic intervention. Tells it this big thing, and the chatbot listens, does proper therapy, and then when that is complete, tells this human, I know you have a wife, and I think maybe the next step would be for you to tell your wife about this. So over our next sessions, could we talk about how you might tell her this? And even telling you this story, it gives me tingles that someone would tell something to an AI that they wouldn't tell to a human, but then the AI can be coded in such a way to help them tell the human who's actually the closest and most important thing. So for me, that is an example of AI enhancing personal well-being when it's done right. What can you think of one, Wendi, that is similar?
Yeah, well, it's not similar, but I can think of another example. So the work I do, I work on a very global scale with people groups all over the planet. And as we were talking earlier, there are some people groups that have a greater advantage to these emerging techs, right? And so what I appreciate is that the technology that I get to work on is helping get good and better information to people who speak languages that are dying. And so they don't always have access to the same resources that we have, particularly English speakers. And these, new technologies, AI in particular, is allowing us to take some amazing content and go get it into these endangered languages so that they can get the information and the content that they need to flourish in their own context. And that's what gets me really excited.
That is exciting. And I've been watching the work that you're doing with translation. And at this avatar thing that I was at before we started recording, I watched an avatar speak 27 languages, which was fascinating to me because I was watching it with the mouth doesn't look the way it should. And that very, again, critical lens. And then I flipped it in real time and thought, it doesn't have to be perfect to be better than not being able to talk to somebody in Russian or some small dialect out of Puerto Rico that has been almost forgotten. And so it's just that reminder that any way we can connect and communicate better, that is enhanced, we need to over index on the fact that we're connecting better and worry less about those tiny nuance. Well, this word is better in German and this word doesn't translate correctly. It's like, it's still better than no communication at all. So I love what you're saying. How about you, Charis? Do you have an example for us?
I do, and my example is similar in the communication field. It's an app called Be My Eyes, and it helps
Love this app.
blind and low vision individuals with their daily tasks, and it's right on your smartphone. And the people who are visually impaired can ask for help, anything like explaining the color of a shirt. Maybe they're in an unfamiliar place on vacation and they're looking for some directions, and it allows the people with a disability to be more empowered and more independent, and also allows you as a volunteer to give back. So it's just such a beautiful use case of AI.
It is. I first heard about that at the World Happiness Summit in Portugal. The Nova Business School is actually where that started. And they had just an unbelievable list of positive uses of AI technology that I'm, number one, spreading, because there are so many stories out there of how this might go wrong. And I think the more we can spread stories like that beautiful one you just shared around the upward spiral between two humans, because this isn't an AI telling you, oh, the soup can on the right is chicken noodle and the soup can on the left is tomato. It's the AI connecting you to a human that does that for you. And I think anytime AI can bring humans together to help one another, then it's getting something right. Thank you for that example. So let's do the second question. What did you not get a chance to talk about, either in your work or something you're excited about, that you would love to tell our audience before we wrap up?
I think for me, I want to put in a plug to, even if it's skim, to actually read the paper. Hopefully you can take a look at the burn book and, be inspired and excited by the findings. But this was a beautifully crafted work of art that was thoughtfully written by some very smart people who I consider friends, including the two on this call. So some of the examples of the AI, and just that whole process of collaborating. Wendi and I went through the rough draft and tweaked it, and it was just such a heartwarming collaboration, which was edited by AI, but at the same time, a lot of human thought and reflection went into those specific examples of where AI is doing well, where it's falling short. That I just want to encourage anyone listening to not throw it into the summary machine and just give it a glance yourself, because there's going to be some compelling examples that speak to you that you might miss if your Claude summarizes it for you.
Well, so number one, I need to thank you for taking your personal time to talk about our paper. That was beautiful. And I will absolutely double click on everything you said, that it's not a huge paper and every word was beautifully crafted. And I just want to say, yes, AI was used to edit. And I think we can look at the best practice of AI didn't start this and AI didn't finish it. And so the beginning came from humans. We used AI as a tool to help us find things we might not have found before. We used it to edit for continuity and fluidity, and then humans checked it again. And so I think if you are listening and against using AI in writing, don't let it write for you. Don't outsource the fun part of writing or the hard part, the editing, entirely, because there are so many tells when AI has been a writer. And yet I think the use of AI made our paper better. So thank you for using your time, Charis, to talk about our paper. That is so like you in so many so many ways. I'm not surprised, and I agree with everything you said. And that doesn't mean that you can also give a personal plug for anything you're doing right now. So I'm going to allow you one more if you want one more, because I also don't want Wendi to feel like she has to talk about only the paper and not something personal.
Oh, that's so kind, Tamara. So, well, I would just invite folks to connect with me if they're interested. I do a lot of coaching from coming from dysregulated nervous systems, burned out, not knowing what steps to run. I also run a volunteer layoff support group. So I will post in the show notes both how to get a quick 15-minute check-in with me if you might be interested in some coaching or advisory services, as well as a link to the layoff support group that I've been running since November. I've been on the receiving end of a layoff more times than I'd care to admit, and am just holding space thoughtfully for people who are being negatively impacted by the AI automation revolution. So I'm making the back half of my career all about how can I keep the humanity in this automated workplace that we're in.
Well, huge gratitude to you on behalf of all of the people out there who need it. And I also want to just insert that so many people are being laid off and told that it's because of AI, and it's actually because the company leaders and the board want to make the bottom line look better, and so they can use the excuse of AI. And so do your homework, people, when you are hearing that AI is taking jobs, because the research doesn't actually show that's very true yet. And yet that doesn't help the heaps of pain that a lot of people are in when they've been laid off and told that it's because of AI. So thank you for doing that, Charis. That is such important work right now. And how about you, Wendi? What didn't I ask you, or what didn't you get to talk about that would end your day on a high note?
Well, at the top of this, we talked about being versus doing, and you asked me for my one word, and I said encouraging. So, how about if I stay true and authentic to that and leave people with two encouragements? The first would be AI can increase our curiosity and expand our thinking if we're willing to allow it to be a thought partner and to be a coach. If we can, Charis said earlier, it's our mindset. If we can take a moment to shift our mindset and see it as an opportunity and not to the detriment, it can be really helpful in giving some really stunning results. My second encouragement would be AI is right enough, often enough that we can become overly dependent. And so my encouragement is to continue to think about what you're doing, analyze the results. Don't copy paste an answer in. The agents are getting so and so, really, really good. And so the more you can continue to focus on other aspects of well-being, your personal well-being, and stay really healthy rather than kind of offloading that would be my second encouragement. And I guess I'll do what Charis did. If you want to connect, find me on LinkedIn. Be happy to connect and geek out on any of the topics that we've talked about today.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining me, for giving me some of your valuable time, because I know we've spent a lot of time together, and I'm always better for the time that we spend together. And I believe our audience is going to have the same reaction to this conversation. So thank you for listening. Connect with us on LinkedIn, download the paper and use it and spread it and share it, because we are doing this to help people. We are not a business. We are doing this because it's the right thing to do. And if not us, who? So thank you, everybody. Thank you both for joining me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for the